today on behalf of my party to note some very grave concerns regarding this Post Office Bill 2023. I had hoped to welcome this bill because many reasons, sir. As former chairman of the Parliamentary Standing Committee overseeing the Postal Department, I had repeatedly flagged the need to revise and repeal the Indian Post Office Act 1898, a colonial legacy long past its expiry date. But over the past decade, we've often seen this government, in the guise of decolonising our minds and updating colonial-era laws, bringing in legislation that is equally, if not more, arbitrary and unreasonable, and that more often than not encroaches upon the fundamental rights of countless Indians. As someone who has great respect for the Minister, I am disappointed to see him putting this half-baked reform before the House. Section 9 and 10 of the bill, this entitles it, using merely a notification, to empower any officer to cause any item in course of transmission through the Post Office to be intercepted, opened or detained in the interest of security of the state, friendly relations with foreign states, etc., or upon the occurrence of any contravention of any of the provisions of this Act or any other law. Now, these are strikingly vague grounds and can be construed to cover anything that our government doesn't like. Indeed, the government doesn't only seek arbitrary powers to spy on Indians by rummaging through their private correspondence and their shipments. As the second clause of Section 9 makes clear, they may also direct India Post to dispose of, which is to say to destroy or trash, any item, any personal article that has fallen foul of their ambiguous definition of what constitutes a threat to India's interests. That the Supreme Court, in the 1996 judgment of People's Union for Civil Liberties versus the Union of India, a matter concerning the interception of telecommunications, opined that a just and fair procedure must exist to regulate the power of interception. To fill this gap, the Supreme Court laid down several safeguards, such as, Mr. Minister, the Supreme Court said, establish the necessity for interception, limit the validity of interception orders, authorization is required from high-ranking officials, and most important, interception orders are to be examined by a review committee. I can't help but wonder why our government, in conceiving of this bill, failed to take such a crucial verdict of the Supreme Court into account. For as it stands, the bill is far more detrimental to the fundamental rights of Indian citizens than the colonial-era law it seeks to supplant. In fact, Mr. Chairman, in some ways, the 1898 Act was less arbitrary because though it allowed interception, it specified, unlike this bill, the circumstances under which interception could be carried out. Here we have once again our government being willfully indifferent to the wise counsel of the highest court of our land. In fact, by not even defining what sort of matter and material cannot be sent through the post, something which the 1898 Act does, our government has sought to make Indians yet more vulnerable to this attempted mass surveillance. So Section 9 of the Post Office Bill 2023 not only grants the government Orwellian powers to intrude into our lives by intercepting, detaining, destroying our correspondence or our consignments, it also does not provide for any mechanism whereby the concerned citizen can even be informed of their correspondence or consignment having been intercepted, and whereby they can contest India Post's decision to intercept, detain or destroy their correspondence. In other words, there is simply no grievance redressal mechanism in the bill, an absence which is felt all the more keenly if you just scroll down to Section 10. By keeping Indians in the dark as to the interception, detention or destruction of their correspondence and consignments, and by not allowing them to contest these decisions, which are inherently arbitrary, our government has violated every principle of natural justice and due process of law, because in cases like these, neither will it bother to listen to the other side, nor will it grant the concerned citizen the right to make a case for themselves. In this regard, the 2023 bill is also violative of Article 14 of our Constitution. While the Consumer Protection Act of 2019 holds our private couriers to account, that does not apply to India Post. And now, pursuant to the second clause of this bill's Section 10, no officer of the Post Office shall incur any liability with regard to a service provided by the Post Office unless the officer has acted fraudulently or willfully caused loss, delay or misdelivery. Now, this clause bolsters our government's power to intercept, detain or destroy our postal articles without being in any way accountable to the people of India. We also cannot hold postal workers liable for loss, delay or misdelivery, for then will commence a debate about whether the omission was committed willfully or with a fraudulent intent, plunging the ordinary Indian citizen into endless red tape. Indeed, because the bill does not provide for a grievance redressal mechanism, Indians have absolutely no avenue to hold the Postal Service liable, and because the Consumer Protection Act does not apply to India Post, the people of India are not entitled to compensation should they incur any loss or damage owing to the Post Office's negligence. Interestingly, the prescription of liability is itself a power that the government assigns itself. If you look at Section 10(1), notwithstanding anything in any other law for the time being in force, the Post Office shall not incur any liability, except such liability as may be prescribed with regard to a service provided by the Post Office. Now, Mr. Chairman, sir, I must say to the Minister that when you yourself can decide where you will be accountable to the people, when you yourself can choose whether you want to be accountable to the people and how much you are accountable to the people, that means you are not accountable at all. That is the broad meaning of this outrageous drafted bill. To send across a letter or parcel through India Post is to fling it essentially into a black hole, with no accountability whatsoever as to whether it will reach its destination or be received by whoever you're sending it to. What's more, you would not even get to know what happened with your letter or parcel, because nowhere in the bill does there exist any provision to notify the concerned citizen that their item has been intercepted. Now, this is profoundly worrying. It would have been one thing to exempt postal workers from liability relating to intercepting items, that the bill does not even consider them liable for such blatant wrongs as loss, misdelivery, delay or damage is downright unacceptable, not least for those e-commerce portals that are the backbone of digital India and that choose to deliver their products through India Post. I love those examples our minister gave us. Miss so-and-so here, Begum so-and-so there, and so on, have been sending those items. But under this law, if those items are damaged, misdelivered, stolen, no one will know anything. They won't even be notified. What kind of bill is this, Mr. Chairman? All in all, Section 10 might well be interpreted as the government absolving the employees of the Indian Postal Service, even though they are public servants, of the accountability that all public servants legally have to the citizens they serve. That the minister's goals he mentioned are all laudable aspirations. They're crucial for the reinvigoration of India Post. But perhaps the greatest flaws of this bill, the evident disdain for our fundamental rights, apart from that, is the fact that it harps on about this alluring destination without prescribing a map that will get us there. Nowhere in the Post Office bill does our government spell out how exactly it intends to convert India Post into a network for the delivery of citizen-centric services. We are being asked to take solace in the fact that once the bill is passed into law, our government will whirl a magic wand of rules and regulations and catapult our postal services to bedazzling new heights. There is no specific promise to the citizens of India. Other than that, the Post Office will not be accountable, the Post Office will not be liable.
Thank you.
So, sir, I'll just conclude. If this transformation comes at the cost of endangering every Indian citizen's right to free speech and expression, every Indian's right to privacy, every Indian's right to natural justice and due process of law, then the remedy is worse than the disease, and therefore I would say this bill is a great disappointment, and I request the Minister to kindly return to the drawing board and come back with something better. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shashi Tharoor. Now, next, Sri Tapir Gaoji.